What's good, fans? Thank you guys for dealing with us through our technical difficulties, but thank you guys for enjoying the show and participating in the show. Cleveland, can you hear me?
I got you just fine, Cam.
All right, man. What's the weather like up there in the Northwest? Man, I see you got your hoodie on. It's looking a little questionable then, huh?
It's been a typical Seattle weather the last couple of days, cloudy and rainy. But today we got a little bit of a sun break, dealing with about a 65 or so.
Oh man, that makes it tough to end the summer. You guys are kind of weaseling through the summer, then, huh?
Yeah,
summer on a strong note. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I don't really quite know what to anticipate. Hence the hoodie. It is certainly a hoodie kind of a day.
Well, it's a cool. It's not a cool nothing. It's a enjoyable 85 down here in the flatlands of Bama. So it's not so bad. Fans, want to thank you again for sticking with the show. This will be our last week of the Sunday special. We appreciate all those of you guys who have tuned in. It's the last week because next week it's going to be our fantasy football draft. So it's no content. You're just going to see how a champion like myself goes through the fantasy football draft process and selects all his key contributors throughout the season. So you get a good view of that, and then obviously the following week will be NFL season. So we made it through. We made it through the dog days of summer, the long spring days, anticipatory spring days. Because now, fans, is back to our full live show, our full length show that we do Wednesday nights. It'll be heavily NFL rated until the NBA season comes back. Hopefully, our Google Sheet will be repaired this year, and so we'll be able to show you guys our picks throughout the season. Maybe we might even have a pick segment for you guys. Who knows? But fans, this week for the Sunday special, our final Sunday special, we want to talk about the NFL preseason, how that's wrapped up. We want to talk about the Tyreek Hill versus that other sprinter guy, the competition that we may or may not see. And we got to talk about Major League Baseball, Cleveland. Fans, I think I got my guy cornered. I got my guy cornered because the best player that this generation has seen is down there in Southern California. Well, he never left Southern California. He went from red to blue. And now he's the boys in blue uniform. And the first Dodger to go 40 for 40, Cleveland. Are you ready to acknowledge that this is the best player that this generation has seen?
Well, Cam, his play speaks for itself. 40-40.
Oh, I know it does. I'm asking if you're ready to acknowledge that.
If he was able to go 50-50, that would certainly be something that would put him in elite exclusive company. But yeah, he's a great player.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. The great player, you're minimizing his greatness. We already known he's a great player, and now you try to move the goalposts and say if he's able to go 50 for 50, that will solidify him. He's already solidified as a great player. You have personally seen nobody throw as many strikeouts as he has and hit as many home runs as he has. You have not seen that, Cleveland. So now that he's gone 40 for 40, which was an exclusive statistic, 40 years ago when Jose Canseco did it. There's only been very few players to accomplish this, but it was exclusive when Jose did it. Now, what we're looking 35, 40 years later, when Shohei does it, I mean, are you ready to acknowledge his greatness?
I acknowledge his greatness. He's a great baseball player. I just said that.
All-time greatness, Cleveland. Are you ready to acknowledge his all-time greatness?
Cam, he's probably the best baseball player I've seen since Barry Bonds.
How many strikeouts does Barry Bonds have in his career?
He has no strikeouts.
So that right there eliminates Barry Bonds from competition of being in his stratosphere, doesn't it?
No. If you can tell
No.
me how many seasons Shohei has hit at 73 home runs, or how many Gold Gloves he has.
Gold Gloves are coming.
Okay, well,
in unless he puts unless he starts using the flaxseed oil, he 73 home runs is a lot. But there you have to admit, Cleveland, there was some assistance. Like in track and field, they say the wind aided jump or the wind aided time. Barry Bonds has some flaxseed oil aided home runs. Would you admit that?
as far as I know, Gary Bonds never failed a drug test, but
I didn't say drug test. I said flaxseed oil.
I mean, I wasn't there, Cam. I don't know.
Oh, you don't want to comment on that. You wasn't there. You don't know the particulars. Okay, I got you. But you have seen Shohei. You are familiar with Shohei's work, and you are familiar with that, and you are aware that you personally have not seen any baseball player have the amount of strikeouts that he has and the amount of home runs combined. You were correct?
Correct.
So doesn't that solidify his greatness? Doesn't that set him apart from your guy Barry Bonds?
No, it doesn't set him apart. It's a different skill set, and quite honestly, a very unique skill set that no one really has been able to pull off to this point. Babe Ruth was the last player to do it. So yeah, that's significant, and that makes him a great player.
Shohei, I got your back. We'll see. This guy dancing all over the place, Shohei. We'll see what happens when he goes 50 for 50, and then how he moves the goalposts in at that point. We'll see. Cleveland, we talked about it on Wednesday night. Should there be some change in the front office for the Seattle Mariners? I think maybe the GM should be the one that been fired. But we got Scott Servais being fired in via Twitter, and then he didn't even get a call from the manager, or a call to the office. He gets to see that he was fired across the ticker watching ESPN. Well, what's your story and what's your thoughts on this situation? And should the GM be next in line?
Yeah, Cam, it's a dumpster fire over here in Mariner land. It's always.
We already knew that, Cleveland. We've been saying this all year, or I've been saying this all year. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's extremely unprofessional to make a move like that for someone that's been the manager, 8-9 years here. Certainly deserved more respect than that than to find out via social media that you're no longer the manager of the Seattle Mariners. Sounds very cowardly to not have that conversation face to face. And yes, Jerry Dipoto is next. The Mariners, I don't believe, are going to make the playoffs. So the way this team is currently constructed, they can't hit it all. Elite pitching, but you have to be able to hit a little bit. And the way this team was constructed, and I know there have been some budgetary limitations, if you will, but still and yet, someone has to take the blame for this. And, trying to make Scott Servais the scapegoat, I don't think that's fair. But, with a team underachieves and underperforms to this extent, something has to happen. And that's typically the first move. The second one will be really removing Jerry Dipoto of his responsibilities as well.
Well, Dipoto claims that he could say, I wouldn't got you Turner, and I wouldn't made, instead of being sellers at the trade deadline, they were buyers, and they would have made a couple moves. You don't like the moves that Dipoto made?
I mean, I think he probably did the best he could given the set of circumstances. There weren't really a whole lot of sellers out there, so I mean, he got what he could get. But when you look around the lineup, up from 1 to 9, there's really only, in my opinion, 2 players that should, 2.5 players that should say, okay, we're solid there. We're solid in center field with Julio. We're solid with Cal Raleigh behind the plate, and we're pretty okay with Victor Robles in right field. For my opinion, everyone else can go.
every one of this, that's 6 players. That's half your lineup.
That's 2/3 of the lineup. Yeah, the rest of those guys can be replaced. I mean, JP Crawford is hurt right now, so maybe, give him a pass. I don't know. He wasn't really hitting that great before that. Third baseman was pretty decent up through the end of May and has fallen off a cliff since then. Our second baseman, Polanco, is very hit or miss. He's a switch hitter, but he's hitting 220 or something like that. We DFA'd our starting first baseman like a month and a half ago, so it's just been kind of a revolving door over there. And left field hasn't been solidified either. So yeah, all those guys can go. Actually, Rosarena, I mean, they'll probably keep him, but I haven't seen the spark that he was supposed to be bringing quite just yet. He made a pretty nice defensive play yesterday, but that's not why we went and traded for him. We went and traded for a big bat in the middle of the lineup, and he hasn't really provided that so far. He had a week or two where he was, kind of hitting the ball okay, but,
Maybe that's why he was available, because he wasn't living up to the expectations in Tampa, right?
Excellent point. But we were, beggars at that point. So, just crossing our fingers and hoping to get a little bit of glimpse of, kind of the Rosarena of years past. And so far, not quite so much.
And you're saying, I know prop fans, we don't typically do this, and we don't speak about the Mariners unless we made that agreement that we don't speak about them unless they're 500. But making this move, and we talked about the need for change just Wednesday. Thursday they went ahead and made the move. You don't think that they can? Right now they're 500 exactly, 65 and 65. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They're outside of the Angels, Cleveland. They're the worst team in the division. White Sox have a 2-8 record. In the American League, they're tied with the Angels and the White Sox for the worst record in the last 10 games. That says a lot right there. That says a lot, because they were at one point they were leading the league or leading the division by 10 games.
It's very true.
And now they're tied with the Angels, the California Angels of Anaheim, minus Mike Trout and the aforementioned the greatest player ever played the game of baseball, and Shohei Ohtani, and the White Sox, who were on a 20-game losing streak, right?
That did happen.
I mean, come on. They have the worst. They're tied with those guys for the worst record in the American League. How bad is it in the National League? I don't know. Is there a worse team? The Miami Marlins went 2-8. So the Miami Marlins lost 83 games so far this year. So they're tied with the Miami Marlins, the White Sox, who's lost 99 games this year, the Angels. They're tied with all three of those teams who have lost 80-plus games this year for the worst record in the last 10 games. I mean, yeah, how does Dipoto keep his job? I mean, obviously he was the one that made the call, but as you mentioned, that was kind of a cowardly way to fire your manager and not even make the phone call or meet him in the office. Yeah, I don't know how Dipoto keeps his job. And I mean, is the next home game going to be filled up? Is a lot of people going to T-Mobile Stadium with their to get some clam chowder and get their fried crickets?
Dan Wilson's first game on Friday, it wasn't sold out, but I think they had like maybe 35,000. And then yesterday afternoon, they had, I believe they said 30,000. So, the team has been supporting the new regime. Dan Wilson's in the Mariners Hall of Fame. So, and then he went and got Edgar Martinez, a Seattle Mariner and
the Mariners Hall of Fame. What?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing?
There
Was
is.
were there 3 players in there in the Mariners Hall of Fame?
Let's see here. Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, King Griffey Jr., Ichiro Suzuki, Edgar Martinez, Dan Wilson, Lou Piniella.
Oh, so not quite double figures. So about 4 or 5 players.
I'm sure I'm missing a few, but I mean, I just wanted to throw those Hall of Famers out there for you, so you kind of step back a little bit. Yeah, there is a Seattle Mariner Hall of Fame, and he's in it.
Hey, you gonna think I'm all serious fans? I've never heard of Dan Wilson. The only Dan Wilson I know was the 6'10" quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks.
That was Dan McGuire. That was Mark McGuire's brother. That's not Dan.
Who is Dan Wilson? What did he do? I ain't heard of this dude.
He's the best catcher in the history of the franchise.
Oh, he was a catcher. Again, I ain't heard of it. So he went and got Edgar Martinez as a hitting coach?
Yes.
So how impactful will this be, Mr. Mariner over there? How impactful will bringing Edgar Martinez? I mean, if you can hit, you can hit, right? I mean, can you really teach?
It's not quite that simple. There's 2 things going on here. One, I think it's too late to expect any drastic change. The sample size just isn't enough there. And although Edgar Martinez was a great hitter in and of himself, does not necessarily mean that he has the ability to translate that to other players to make them great hitters. Quite often,
my point exactly. If you can hit, you can hit.
Yeah, quite often superstars don't necessarily have the ability to help other people and players do things that typically only superstars can do. So you're asking them to do something that's extremely unique and rare, which is why you're a star. So I'm not sure that he can all of a sudden, whisper a few, tips and pointers in these guys' ears, and all of a sudden the bats just light up. That's highly unlikely, and certainly not with 35 games left.
So we're expecting another season where the Mariners miss the playoffs. That's what it sounds like to me.
More likely than not, yeah. There's not enough games really to make that.
So the manager gets fired for having a 10-game lead and now being 500, right? And we talked about who they're tied with, who their last 10 games is tied with the likes of the Miami Marlins, the Chicago White Sox, the California Angels of Anaheim, minus Mike Trout and minus the greatest baseball player we've all seen play. The Mariners are tied with that team. So to have a 10-game lead at one point in the season, and then not make the playoffs, the manager got to go. I mean, or not the manager, the GM got to go. Who put this team together? Who put this team together? And I don't see there any reason why the manager should stay Cleveland, especially the way he decided to fire, to make the change and not contact the current manager. Allow him to, I guess his agent or his wife told him. I don't know who told him, but it was a pretty sad state of affairs, Cleveland. With that being said, Cleveland, I mean, we've all been fired before. Everybody's been fired. I've been fired a couple times, and I've quit some jobs as well. But one comical situation, I didn't find it comical at the time. Looking back at it now, I found it pretty comical because I was looking forward to an eventful Thanksgiving in Christmas holiday ahead, and I was told to meet my manager, who I know my manager is out of town, doesn't live in the city. So for him to have an impromptu meeting was pretty peculiar, and caught me off guard. But I mean, it's the holidays around the corner, so I'm like, oh, he's coming in for a good meal or something. I don't know. He's doing some holiday shopping or something. And he says, meet me at the Starbucks. Okay. So I go, I'm going about my business, kind of cancel some appointments. And I'm going about my business. And he says, and he has his laptop with him. I'm like, okay, he's working. Like, all right, well, what we here to talk about? And so he pulls up the trending reports and it starts having some weird language, like some quarterly review language that now it's kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't a quarterly review. Usually I have to prepare for that quarterly review. I have to put a presentation together for the quarterly review, but he's hit me with some quarterly review language that I know I was not privy of and not prepared for. You know what I'm saying? And then he's like, yeah, Cam. And then he hit me with the line, you've been on this side of the table before where you had to make this call and you know how uncomfortable it is. I'm like, what? Wait, yeah, what are you talking about? Like,
Still not registered. Still not registered.
like, wait, hold on. Yeah, I've done a lot of things with this company. So what are you referring to, a boss? And then he says, yeah, we're gonna have to move. I mean, and I'm like, the cool thing about it is they're like, okay, we're gonna make the change in 60 days. So there was some comfort there, right? Nonetheless, it was clearly way unexpected. And so he says, I said, okay, well, I got commitments and commitments that I made over the, certainly for the next month, for the next couple of weeks. He's like, yeah, don't worry about that. Your customers will figure it out. I'm like, oh, so now the commitments I made are just up in the air. I see my customers, and they're just gonna be like, yeah, we figured it out. Man, it was the funny part was I was not made aware of the situation. And then going into the meeting, I went into the meeting kind of blind. Like I knew it was odd that he was coming from out of town to have the meeting with me, but I was blindsided. Not kind of, I was blindsided. The comforter thing, there was a cushion there that I had. It wasn't fired immediately. There was a little cushion there, so they showed me some grace in that respect. And then I got a severance check, so that was another awesome situation. But it made that situation better. But it still was kind of weird, and now I can laugh about it. But I was kind of pissed in Cleveland. Do you have any getting fired story? Now I got some stories where I quit, where I walked off the job, and but getting fired is, there's when you quit, you feel you're in control, right? You kind of prepare for the situation. You know what you're doing, whether you and I didn't communicate. Let me ask this question, Cleveland. If you don't want to share a gut fire story, have you given a 2-week notice? I don't think I've ever given a 2-week notice.
Oh yeah, I give a 2-week notice pretty much every time.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever given a 2-week notice. I don't. In fact, I know I haven't given a 2-week notice. Mine is I'm done. I've had enough here. I'm out. I'm outro. I may have thought the plans obviously were in motion 3 and 4 weeks in advance, but me giving a 2-week notice, no. You guys hold that 2-week check, right? At the beginning of the job. When you start a job, they put that little 2-week check. So you got to wait 3 to 4 weeks before you actually get a paycheck. Yeah, that's my notice right there. That's my notice right there. Send me my money. I've never given it. I'm trying to think. I'm really trying to think real quick. Just kind of scan. I don't recall giving a 2-week notice.
Wow, that's rude.
That's rude.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I recall giving a 2-week notice. I'm really trying to think. Like, have I given a 2-week notice? No, I don't think I've given a 2-week notice. I'm out. It's been real, fans. It's been real, friends. Yeah, I'm bouncing. So let's see what happens with the Mariners. Clearly, Service wasn't in a position to give his 2-week notice. So let's see what happens here. Maybe DePoto will do that before the season's up and give some grace to the Mariners ownership. Should there be new ownership? You can't make a new owner sell his team. Like he's not doing no selling. So
I would love new ownership. Yeah, there's like I have been saying all season. There's nothing worse than a broke owner that is pretending like this is Cincinnati or Kansas City or St. Louis or some small little market that can't afford major free agents. That's just not the truth.
Cleveland, what did you learn from free agency? Not free agency, excuse me. What did you learn from NFL preseason?
I learned that there is no general rule with regards to playing starters or not playing them. Like everyone has their own particular philosophy on it. It's not like a universal way like it used to be that how everyone does it. So I think it's been interesting to kind of see kind of the whys behind why some starters aren't playing and why some starters are playing significant snaps during the preseason. I think I learned that there's a lot of coddling of the quarterbacks that are kind of up and coming, my guy Caleb included. So we'll kind of see how that whole thing kind of plays itself out. I didn't really, even watching the Seahawks, I don't know if I really got a chance to really see what they're going to look like. So, but maybe preseason is not for the fans to really kind of get that information. Maybe you have to kind of dig a little bit deeper and kind of hear a little bit more what's going on in practice adverse kind of what you're seeing with your own two eyes in the preseason games. Like I saw Gino and those guys have one impressive drive, but how does that translate to what they're going to look like during the regular season? I've seen a lot of the other players play fairly well, which shows me that they have decent depth, but they're not incredibly deep. And certainly not on the defensive side of the ball. So, they're very, I guess, for lack of a better word, thin. And then Nwosu just got hurt yesterday. So, that's kind of a big hit. So, I think I've learned that everybody kind of does things differently. And, we've always said that you can't make too much out of preseason, but I think that carries even more weight in today's NFL.
So you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the practice time. What they've come up with the last few seasons are these joint practices where they can focus on down and distance in situations, whether it's 3rd and 10 from the 40 or it's 3rd and 2. They can kind of simulate these situations. They'll play more situational football versus what a preseason game is get you. Yes, a preseason game is a game, true, but if they can play more situational football in practice in these joint practices that the coaches agree to, you've heard now all of a sudden. What I find is interesting. I would love to get with these changes. I would love to get a Harbaugh's perspective on fighting. Is fighting a bad thing? How has fighting become a bad thing? Because don't you want I understand fighting amongst each other in training camp, but fighting against the opponent, like, don't you want your team not only to be aggressive and be physical against the opponent, and now you're gonna say fighting is outrule fighting? Like, if that guy is more physical or more aggressive with me, I'm gonna want to come back. And then if that's it becomes a what is a Manus Mostro, where somebody got to prove who's the baddest, who's the strongest. Don't you want that in a practice game, certainly a scrimmage? Like, I would think that I would want my defensive linemen to show their authority over the opponent's offensive lineman. I would think that I need to get some clarity on that one. So the joint practices, you are absolutely correct. The joint practices that the NFL started doing allows them to focus on the situational football more so than the games do. So some coaches, and I'll go back to Staley, um, for not saying he was obviously clearly wasn't a top of the line coach, but that was his logic that um, we can have more reps in the situational football than in the game situation, so they can simulate that a little bit better. So that has something to do with the way that these coaches are looking at the games. And so if they see these players and doing situational football in practice against their opponent, that's a better reading. I'm suspecting than what they feel the game is. But I think the game is a game. So there's no simulating, having your name called and running out there on the field. There's no simulating the scoreboard in the stadium with fans in the building, and it's time to shine. I don't think there's much simulation for that. And so when it comes down to it, on a football team, there's probably, if there's 63 players, obviously you have the 22 starters, right? And then you have, most cases, you have the 22 backups. So that's 44 players right there. Um, then you have your punter and your kicker, your special teams guy, which is probably 3 to 4 guys. So that now we're at what, 48 players, and out of 65 players, so there might be a third string quarterback. So now we're 49 players, right? Your backup center or any veterans that you have. Let's say you have your backup center, your fourth wide receiver, third and fourth wide receiver. So now we're at 52 players. So that means that there's 10 positions that really guys are fighting for, right? 10 open positions that guys are fighting for. So it makes it really tough for these guys to break through, and the third and fourth string players to break through, because there's really only 10 positions that are available on any given team. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, I understood your math to a certain extent, but that is part of what you don't get with the preseason games. You don't give players like you're referring to that are kind of on the fringe an opportunity to do something, really miraculous and, kind of, crack the
lineup. Yeah, you have to be really special. I mean, you have to be really special.
Basically, you have to show that in practice. There's no other place to kind of audition what it is that you can do.
So. Yeah, because the game is going to give it to you, and so rather than the injuries, it makes sense. Injuries could happen at any time, so maybe they don't play the first game. But I would think, initially, I mentioned, or this week 0. I mean, it's good for fantasy football players. I've asked Keenan Allen this specifically. What do you think about the week 0? He's like, well, yeah, it gives us time to rest. And I asked him, my initial thought was, doesn't it slow down that you got in rhythm and kind of you peak, you start off mini camp and training camp, you start slow and you build to this crescendo, and now you get a week off before the game starts. And doesn't that does that hamper your preparation for week 1? He's like, no, it's actually a good thing. You got to get some rest to kind of heal up any minor injuries, so you start the season fresh. And that was not a unique perspective, but that was an interesting perspective coming from, like I say, a Hall of Fame player who's played the game for many years. I would think that you want to continue that momentum and build upon what you're doing. And like my everyday task, like, I don't want to take a break. I want to keep going so I can continue that rhythm I'm in. I've gotten in, rather than taking a week off, because it's easy to get lazy in that week, but if you continue to maintain the preparation for that you have throughout the week, and act like it's a game day, and then just take game off, and then you're able to come back next week, but then hearing it from a professional, you have to kind of take what he says, right, and listen to his perspective of it. What's your thoughts on taking the week off and having that bye week, if you will?
I think it's just like you said, it's a bye week, and certainly you don't want to grind your players into the ground, before the season starts. And yeah, it gives you a chance. We did all that. And now let's, come back and, they're going to, have cut downs here on Wednesday. So then you have like a full, 10 days to kind of, and some of these teams, like, again, the week 0 is different for everybody, right? They're starting games on Thursday and Friday now. So, not everybody has that same, grace period, but I think it's good to kind of like, once you have established what your 53-man roster is going to be, and then kind of going forward, then you can kind of, continue to implement whatever it was that you were doing without kind of being in a rush to kind of, okay, we had, the fourth, last preseason game, and then, next week's the game. I think that kind of break in between is good for them.
Drake May, Jacoby Brissett. Who would you start?
I'd start Jacoby Brissett.
Really? Just because you don't like what you see out of Drake May, or he's a rookie, he needs to learn? What's your thought process there?
Gives you the best opportunity to win. I don't think Drake May gives you the best opportunity to win right now.
Are you surprised that Justin Fields hasn't looked any better?
No, that's kind of why they had decided to move on from him in the beginning. I mean, they could have done anything with the number 1 pick, but it was very clear that they were going to take Caleb, and there was no room for him. Had he been a little bit more consistent, they would have done something different with the number 1 pick, but they were pretty much all in consensus that he was not going to get them to the next level. And, Caleb has that ability. So I did think that he would do.
I think they got caught up in the hype with that number 1 pick. So they were listening to everybody else.
Okay. Season's about to start, Cam.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
I know. I can't wait. Just because, man, this will be the second season in a row.
What?
What? You've had the Mr. Magoo blinders on, man. You just can't see this for what it is, man. Last year it was CJ. This year it's gonna be Caleb, so it'll be fun.
I mean, you didn't expect CJ to have the season he had. Come on.
Okay. Man. Look, man, what did I say?
You said he's gonna be better than Bryce Young coming out of college. You did say that. I give you that. You didn't expect CJ to take the Houston Texans to the playoffs.
Well, Cameron, given that
I'm gonna have to go review some tape. You didn't say
that I said that he can make all the throws, and that he was.
He can make all. You did say he can make all the throws. You said he would be better than Bryce Young.
Yeah,
you did say. That doesn't mean. You never said playoffs and CJ
passer in the history of the NFL. No, not really.
Is that thing? That's the only point I'm making. Yeah. So it's not blinders. Come on, I'll give you your credit, but you don't. Come on now, don't add stink to the game like you thought he was going to be.
This is going to be season 2, back-to-back consecutive years that you've been unable to see the truth.
What are you saying, Richardson? Now, do those 5 games he played last year? I think it was 5 or 6 games that he played before he got injured and sat down for the year. Do you think those 5 games mattered, or he is in his rookie year this year?
No, they mattered. Definitely, he understands the speed of the game. He understands, what his responsibilities are going to be. Now, whether or not he's able to execute that at a high level still remains to be seen. I mean, he's still very raw. What are we saying? College and pro, he still hasn't played like 20 games. So, or started 20 games. So that's still very, kind of wet behind the ears, so to speak. I mean, I won't call him a rookie because he didn't play very many games. I think that the games he played last year are significant, but still, he hasn't played enough to really be able to assess what type of quarterback he's going to be. It's still just based a lot on just potential and raw talent.
Does he get the Colts in the playoff conversation?
In the conversation, I mean, if he stays healthy, we shall see. I'm not quite sure what his decision making is going to look like. So playoffs might be a little bit of a challenge in the AFC, but
they're in the worst conference, worst division in the AFC. Like he's playing Tennessee and your guy CJ and
Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville, so I mean, we'll see. I know my guy Brock Purdy. He's keeping everything under the wraps. He's waiting till the season to unveil his improvements because we haven't seen it there. Cleveland, Tyreek Hill challenges Noah Lyles to a 50-meter race. Do we see that race?
Oh, it's 50 now. It's not 100, it's 50.
Yeah, it's 50. It's 50. Do we see that?
Probably won't see that, no.
Noah Lyles don't want none.
I don't think Tyreek really is all that up for that. And when would they do it? After the season?
I mean, that'd be after the season. Wait a year, maybe one of those new track competitions that they have coming up. Michael Johnson's putting together. Cleveland, does young Shanahan and John Lynch? Now we know that they're avoiding scrutiny, by taking Brock Purdy and Brock Purdy panning out as he has over the last couple of years. They've avoided the scrutiny of Trey Lance. I don't know if you've seen any of Trey Lance, but with Dallas, but he still has not turned the corner. Does Shanahan and John Lynch deserve any scrutiny for moving up and making those picks or sending those picks away to get Trey Lance? Or do we still have to see what happens with Brock Purdy and if they actually able to win one?
No, it was still a huge mistake. I mean, you just basically got lucky on the back end of that, right? Mr. Irrelevant. So you can't even say it's like
you can't say he got lucky, but
yeah, you got lucky. Typically, Mr. Irrelevant doesn't turn into a Pro Bowl quarterback. Typically Mr. Irrelevant doesn't even make the team. So the fact that he did both of those things is, kind of flukish. With regards to you thinking that you had some generational talent in Trey Lance, yeah, you were completely wrong about that. But because Mr. Irrelevant kind of bailed you out on the back end, yeah, like you said, no one is really pointing the finger at, your ability to assess talent.
So do you think they deserve scrutiny, or is this a wait and see?
Yeah, no, they deserve scrutiny for doing that. How many picks did they give up for somebody that's not going to be an NFL quarterback?
I mean, they gave Miami 3 picks.
Okay, well, there you have it.
And he doesn't look like he's going to be an NFL quarterback the way he looked. I don't know if you saw any of his play with the Cowboys. Doesn't look like he's competing for that position anytime soon. So
for even the number 2 spot, yeah. So if if you're not competing for the 2 spot, then what are we talking about here?
So Cleveland, we had yesterday was 8/24. Mamba Day, Cleveland. What is your best? What is your best memory of Kobe Bryant?
My favorite Kobe Bryant memory is against Sacramento in the playoffs. It was overtime. They were down by 6 with like maybe 2 minutes left. And Kobe just calmly came down, hit a corner 3, cut the lead in half, and just the body language, just the way he was jogging back down the court, he was like so supremely confident. He's like, we can play this game 300 if you want. I'll be here.
Is that after Shaq fouled out?
I don't recall if Shaq had fouled out or not, but I know that if they had not converted on that possession, it was going to, get very bad. So not only did they convert, but just cut the lead in half and just kind of just completely silenced everybody. This was when he was wearing the number 8 with the fro. So
number 8 was bad, dude. I think number 8 was better than 24. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah.
Speaking of number 8, what I will remember most about Kobe is after they won the first championship. How he put on 20 pounds of muscle, came back stronger, um, bigger. Like you could tell for game one, he was in the lab. He wanted to get better. After they won the championship, and when most guys win the championship, they Shaq, for example, it takes the summer off. We got this. Use the season to get in shape, and then they'll be ready to go. NBA is a long season, right? They'll be ready to go come April again. Well, Kobe Bryant came in that October, like thinking it was June. wanted to put in work. I mean, that was it. So that was after their first championship. After their second championship, Kobe Bryant came back and all of a sudden had a knockdown 3-point shot, which he didn't have. He had a jumper, he had the fadeaway when they won the first one. He had a jumper when they won the second one. That third year, or after they won the third, or excuse me, after they won championship 2, he came back with a knockdown 3-pointer, which now he's a 3-point. I don't even know what a 3-point shooting percentage would have grew to, but he was a knockdown 3-point shooter that third year. So just after each championship year, he got better. As a young guy, as a what was it, 22 when they won the first one? He just continued to improve. And I think for me, that was the lasting kind of going to those games, seeing him play. Those were the lasting memories. Again, I wasn't a Laker fan, but I was able to appreciate what number 8, how he played the game, his focus, and how he wanted to get better. And then those are. Do you agree with me, or do you understand where I'm coming from?
No, those are great things. Great examples of a tremendous work ethic and a desire to be, the greatest basketball player that's ever played.
And then on a personal level, it was this moment here that I will always remember Kobe. So fans, just to kind of preference this moment, this was at an event at Body Armor. So Kobe bought into Body Armor. He wasn't the senior. What do they call it? He wasn't a minority owner. He was he had bought into it. It was part of him. Once you put Kobe Bryant on it, right? Like he becomes the most known figure uh in the company, in the stakeholder, most well known stakeholder. So they had this event at the soccer stadium. Kobe Body Armor became the licensed drink for the MLS, the uh, uh, Major League Soccer, which is more like minor league soccer. But were you familiar with that? That Body Armor became the licensed drink for MLS. Were you familiar with that?
I didn't know that they had an official drink of the MLS, but that's interesting to know.
I don't know that it still is, but at the time they were announcing that, again, this is a drink that Kobe Bryant was a part of. That this was becoming they were announcing it on this day. And so on this day they had this was at a soccer stadium, obviously. They had a bunch of kids out there. Kobe Bryant was supposed to run some drills with some kids, and he was a big soccer fan, et cetera, et cetera. So they had it set up to where he would be on the field, kind of running drills. It turns out that didn't happen. It probably was maybe 60 media members there, and it was too big to do one scrum, obviously. So what they said, they'll break it down into 3 different little groups. So 15 or 20 of us in each group, and then Kobe will come down the line and talk to us all. And I'll play this first before I tell you the second part of the story. But this is my interaction with Kobe Bryant. Can you guys see this? You guys can see this here.
We need volume, Cam.
You can't hear it? You cannot hear it, Cleveland?
No.
I don't affect the volume. Is it too low or you just can't hear it altogether?
Can't hear it at all.
Oh, man. All right. I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So you can see this video. You can see this video on here it is. You can actually see what it is. What's your fans on YouTube? Type in Kobe Bryant talks about an athlete's mental makeup and his personal development. Have you heard that video, Cleveland?
I have. It's a very interesting perspective, again, from someone with the Mamba mentality.
Hey Kobe, you talked about you. All right. Sorry, Sam. But let me try. I want to play this for you guys. I think I got it. All right. Can you see this? Let me know if you can hear this. If you hear this now or not. Thank you for your patience, fam. But let me know if you can hear this. The importance of hydrating. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, athletes, and could you talk about what it means to the Hey Kobe, you talked about the importance of hydrating athletes, and could you talk about what it means to the mind, to focus on the mind and getting them mentally tough, mentally prepared for their journey to become professional athletes?
Well, it happens in increments. I think that's something that I think a lot of coaches at the youth level or parents at the youth level miss because they believe that through yelling and intimidation is how they make kids tougher. That's not the case. You make kids tougher by teaching them the game and understanding that repetitive behavior to the point where it becomes second nature to you. That's where mental toughness comes from because you rely on your training.
So with any athlete in any sport, can you give a message to the kids to kind of persevere through the false teachings they may be giving?
Patience.
Okay.
Patience. Just do the work. And the more you do these things over a period of time, the better you'll become at them. And there's no amount of yelling or screaming that's going to make up for that. Thanks, okay, thanks for indulging me, fans. I thought that was very insightful. What's good? Yeah. What's your biggest memory? What's your biggest memory of Mambo? What will you remember most? I thought that was very insightful for Kobe. Um, to get that, to elicit their response, Cleveland. As you know, you've been in those situations, right? I put you in those situations where, so again, in a scrum where there's 15 people around you, everybody wants to ask Kobe a question, right? You need to come up with something that you have to kind of set yourself apart. Not only set yourself apart, but get a genuine answer
from him or anybody. That's not easy to do, fans. I just want you to know, that's not easy to do. Additionally, something else that happened on that day was there were reporters whose not opinion that I not only value, um, who are accomplished in the industry, that can't do that. That they can't do that. It's they couldn't do it that day. One day, what I found and what even added more pressure to me is one of the guys before me asked a question, and I just thought to myself, dude, like, he asked. So in Los Angeles, there was the LAFC. That was one soccer team, and probably they were probably in their second year when this video took place. They're probably in their second year, the LAFC, second or third, one of the two. But there's a Los LA Galaxy, who Beckham, when Beckham came to MLS, that's who Beckham played for, probably 10 years before. So the LA Galaxy been in the league probably 10 years in this MLS. Are you familiar with the two different teams, the LA Galaxy and the LAFC? So the guy asked Kobe, we're at LAFC's stadium, brand new stadium. The stadium is probably they built the stadium in March. The team started playing in September. Okay, so it hasn't been there. That's where, for those of you familiar with Los Angeles, it's where the the Clippers used to play. LA's, what was it? Not City Center or something. The LA Sports Arena. They tore down the sports arena and they built this stadium on that same site where the sports arena, just outside of USC campus, just across. You park in that same field to go to a USC game. At least the media does. You park in that same parking lot to go to a USC game at the Coliseum. So it's just outside the Coliseum. And the guy again, up until this point, I valued his opinion right up until this point. He asked Kobe Bryant, he says, hey, Kobe, now that there's two teams in Los Angeles, which team are you rooting for? Like, dude, we're at the LAFC field. What do you think he's gonna say today? And Kobe's response was kind of funny. He's like, you waited all this time to ask me that? I was like, he answered the question, but that was his immediate response. I was like, oh boy, I better come up with something good. Like, now the pressure's on. Like, I knew I wanted to ask him something about the Mamba mentality, but I did not want to say Mamba mentality. You know, I knew it, so I wanted to ask him something along that lines. But now it's like, the pressure's on. You gotta come up with something. But that response, man, and that was a couple people before me, but it was cool to meet dude. It was cool to chat with dude. That was Cleveland. That was 10 days, man. It was less than 2 weeks before that helicopter ride. That interview happened less than 2 weeks before that helicopter ride, which makes that video even more eerie, if you will. Man, just monumental. So Kobe Bryant was sticking in my head not only because of his work ethic and coming back off of a championship. A lot of teams, and just continue to watch this throughout the years. And this is now 20 years ago. It's crazy to believe, but it's now 20 years ago. Watch how teams come back after winning a championship. A lot of them, they have their chest poked out and they feel more confident. But Kobe Bryant went to the lab. He went into the lab, and he got better. It is and again, I'm not a Laker fan by no means at all, but I recognize the greatness of number 8. He went to the lab. He got better, and then he did it again. He added muscle. The next year, they went back and won the championship. The next year, he added a 3-point shot. They win a third championship, and then that was when all the Kobe versus Shaq stuff started to happen. And then 2006, he just started whining and crying all off season about, oh, they need to put people around me. Well, Kobe Bryant, you had the most dominant dude ever on your team. You supposed to figure out. And that would be my only complaint about Kobe Bryant. He wasn't a great teammate. I think he could have been a better teammate. His philosophy was follow me and I'll take you there, but he wasn't trying to make anybody better. I mean, you heard the story with Smush Parker said Kobe Bryant didn't talk to him, and Kobe tells him, "Well, you're not on my level. You can't talk to me until you get a championship." Well, dude, you're the one who's supposed to help get him a championship. You know, Smush Parker is not leading the Lakers to a championship. You're supposed to be able to use him to get you another championship. But he wasn't entertaining, he wasn't entertaining some of those teammates. You know what I mean? So that's my lasting legacy, my lasting memory of Kobe Bryant. And then I actually get a chance to talk to him and hear how thoughtful he was. Just on a question, I didn't come up with the question. I didn't have the question written down, fans. Don't think of that at all. I did not have that question written down. That was off the top of my mind, and it was even more pressure added because of the questions that I was hearing around Kobe Bryant while he was talking. But I appreciate that he actually gave me a thoughtful answer, and that and within a minute, he gave you answer 2 questions. The mentality of an athlete, and then the false teachings. How should you treat your kids? How should you coach up your kids? And yeah, be patient. No amount of yelling is going to help them out. You have to be patient with them and teach them the job. Is once you learn the routine, learn the job, learn the roles, they're going to get better over time. So, I mean, I thought those were valuable lessons, Cleavon. Your final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, it was interesting that he had that kind of philosophy about coaching. Everyone kind of, I think, responds differently. And I think that, he was fortunate to kind of have coaches throughout his career that weren't particularly, authoritarian, so to speak. Started out with Del Harris, and then, had Phil Jackson forever, and then various, random coaches after that. But, kind of the whole, Zen kind of philosophy seemed to work for him. We've seen coaches, the Caliparis and the Bob Knights and, people that, kind of try and get their points across differently. It was interesting to hear that, he didn't think that those other methods were particularly effective.
Yeah, you're right. That was interesting to gain his perspective on that. But you're right. Or the what you call it? I'd imagine that Greg Popovich isn't as I figure I bet he uses some choice language as well through his coaching style. But he is more cerebral. He's more cerebral thinking. So if you can challenge his mind, maybe that's the way to get to Kobe Bryant. But like you say, there's many different styles to get the job done, and some players you need to know who you're working with. Some players need to kick in the butt. Some players need you to put your arm around them, right? And some players don't need motivation. They just need to know how to do the job. And now I think Kobe Bryant came in that respect where he didn't need the motivation. Fans, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Voice of the Fans podcast. Again, this is just your Sunday special. We got one more week. This week 0. Next week is going to be our fantasy football draft show, draft preview. So tune in if you want to see how a champion like myself selects his team, because it's the Voice of the Fans Fantasy Football League draft next week. We'll have a couple more drafts that we'll be airing a couple more drafts too, leading up to our Voice of the Fans podcast. On Wednesday, we're going to have our Fox Sports NFL beat writer Eric Williams join us for NFL preseason. On the 4th, we're going to have USA Today's Tyler Dragon join us for another NFL preview. So we have a couple preview shows for you guys to tune into and help you guys with your selection process. And then we're moving into our selections where we'll be picking every game every week throughout the year, and you'll see between Cleveland and myself who's able to win. Now, did we have a clear winner last year?
Yeah, I won all 3 levels of that.
I don't recall
Most correct wins, the most wins against the spread, the highest percentage against the spread, and also confidence. So yeah, got the triple crown.
I'm gonna have to review our stat sheet on that
Yeah,
one.
it's right.
I'm not sure if all 3 categories, Cleveland.
Actually, I would suggest that you didn't, and just start fresh in 2024, so you don't have that on your mind. All 3 levels.
Fans, stick with us throughout the season. You'll be able to we'll help you with your pick segments, and then we'll also help you with your confidence picks and fantasy football ideas and suggestions throughout the season. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Voice of the Fans podcast. Give yourselves a round of applause for sticking with us this long. Give Cleveland a round of applause for I don't trust that he won all 3 categories, but I'm gonna have to go double check that. But give Cleveland a round of applause for being with us this morning. Please send all comments, feedbacks, concerns, complaints to @_Voice of the Fans on Twitter. That's @_Voice of the Fans on Twitter. And make sure you tell a friend about about our podcast. Again, we only have one more week of the Sunday special because we won't do it during the season. Obviously, this is what games playing right now in a couple of weeks. But we have our showcase show every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk NFL, we talk NBA, and whatever else is going on in the sports show. We give you a couple different features to separate that show. We have a number game at the beginning of the show, this week in history segment in the middle of the show, and then we also have our we end the show with a quote to help motivate you guys and inspire you guys throughout the rest of the week. So be sure to tune in for that show as well. Also give let your friends and family know about the podcast. Cleveland, where can they find you?
At Clevie Wonder on TikTok and Twitter, and Cleveland's still on Instagram.
There you go, fans. Want to thank you, fans, for making our voice your choice. Enjoy your Sunday.